All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you to preview our Rams matchup against the Chicago Bears. This weekend in Chicago, I will be at the game coming off of our Week 3 win against San Francisco. So the Rams will be taking on rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, who many people in Los Angeles are familiar with, and the Chicago Bears, Jake. Uh, Week 4, against this Chicago Bears team who has clearly struggled. I've watched every game that they've played. Their defense, in my opinion, is a top 5 defense. Their offense is abysmal. It's pretty bad. And we'll talk about why they've been bad, but it's quite literally painful to watch. I watched the entire Bears versus Colts game last week, and I don't know why I put myself through that. I mean, just genuinely terrible on both sides of the ball. For both teams. But Jake, going into this matchup, what do the Rams need to look out for?
Yeah, I think going into this matchup, Caleb Williams is now slinging it around a little carelessly. Had 2 turnovers last week. You look at the first game. Don't even think he had 100 yards passing. So they have to look out for some opportunities. I think there's a really good chance that Keller Witherspoon is activated. I'm just going to say that right now, and I think that helps. He had 3 interceptions last year. No John Johnson, that hurts. But I think Caleb Williams, first off, giving opportunities for the Rams to take advantage of, that pressure is going to get to him. Okay, it just is. He was pressured over, I think it was 30 times the last game. The Rams had 27 pressures on Brock Purdy. I mean, the name of the game is to just bring the quarterback down when you get those. And the Rams haven't been able to do that. And it's what, kept Kyler Murray, doing what he was doing. Brock Purdy was able to, do damage and do what he did. So Caleb Williams, he's going to try to do the same thing. And if they can bring Caleb Williams down, sack him, force him into some, bad decisions, this one could get ugly. But at the same time, it could also get ugly the opposite way, as we've seen with Kyler Murray. If he can make things happen with his legs, throw downfield, he's got some great weapons. Keenan Allen may or may not play. You have DJ Moore, who is a threat deep downfield, obviously, guy that could have 200 yards in a game. He's done it before. Roma Dunze looks like he's really getting comfortable with the league now. Cole Kmet has been an absolute stud. They've really had a hard time getting the ball rolling with DeAndre Swift in the run game. I believe DeAndre Swift averaged 1.8 yards per carry last week, as opposed to 3 from Roschon Johnson, who is going to get an extra look this week. So I think Alexis really, they're going to need to stop the run. If they stop the run, it's going to put way too much pressure on Caleb, and they're not going to be able to win this game. The offensive line looks way better on paper than it does on tape. Obviously, we don't care on paper because once we finally actually watch these guys play football, paper gets thrown out the window. Paper is entirely made for before the season. Looks like Braxton Jones is taking a step back. I know Nate Davis got hurt. Coleman Shelton is a weaker link, as the Rams know, because he was the weak link of their offensive line last year. So Darnell Wright not taking another step like we were expecting maybe in year 2. It's just been really bad all around for the offense. But Chicago's defense has been an opposite story, and we'll, I'm sure, get into that later on in the show. You're muted, by the way.
Chicago's defense has been really, really good.
Yes.
I went very heavy on them in fantasy this year, and they were ranked like I don't remember what they were ranked, but they weren't like a top fantasy defense. And I remember just taking them, and some people were like, "Really, Chicago?" And I was like, "Yeah, really." I was like, trust me, they got really, really hot at the end of the year last year, and I figured that they were going to be even better this year with some new pieces, and they certainly have. They're the only reason the Bears have been in any games. So, the offense for the Rams is going to have to go up against a defense that's been performing really well for Chicago. So let's talk about that first. Let's talk about our offense going up against this Bears defense, Jake. I think it's very curious, what the Rams could do against the Bears defense. Because, like I said, the Bears are pretty solid all around. I don't, think that they have necessarily a weak link in their defense that stands out to me. But looking at what the Rams offense has, let's talk about, last week. what worked for them last week? Kyron Williams was the offense last week, right? We looked at that game. Kyron Williams was it. He was the only one that scored. So I think if the Rams are going into this game against Chicago, they're going to be looking to ride the hot hand. They're probably going to try to establish some rhythm in the run game with Kyron. I think getting Tutu Atwell involved again might be a good option for the Rams. Looking at this Bears depth chart and pulling up on their defense, this Bears secondary, like I said, pretty underrated. I would say Tyreek Stevenson either really hot or really cold. Kyler Gordon in there at nickelback. Jalen Johnson has been really good for the Bears, and I wonder who he is going to go up against. Is it going to be Tutu Atwell? Are they going to put him on Demarcus Robinson? Like we talked about last week, Demarcus Robinson is kind of the name that all these defenses are familiar with. Now there's more tape on Whittington and Tutu Atwell, but Demarcus Robinson, I think, we might see covered by Jalen Johnson. I'm not sure yet what they'll do, but obviously Jaquan Brisker, very good safety for the Bears. So maybe the Rams do try to establish the run, Jake, starting off going up against the defensive front by the Bears, who is led by Montez Sweat. But somebody to watch out for would be Gervon Dexter, who was a second-round pick in 2023. He has started off the season pretty hot. In the middle there. But Jake, what are your thoughts? You look at this Bears defense, like I said, I don't necessarily see that there's a weak link. I mean, maybe the secondary, but still pretty solid all around. It would be interesting to see how Sean McVay approaches this. What do you think he'll do?
Yeah, I think they have to run the football. Run the football, set up play action. I think Kyron is definitely, I've said that many times. I think he's the key to this team moving forward. I think he's the engine of the offense. I want to see him used more in the passing game. Not really going to talk too much about Blake Corum. I know a lot of people will ask, oh, what about Corum? I don't think it really matters. Like, I think you just truck along with what you have. Maybe you integrate him later on in the year, but evidently he's not ready, or they've forgotten about it, or whatever. But the reality is Kyron Williams is ready. He's one of the best running backs in football. And I would just force them to have to stop Kyron Williams in this Rams run game. Then you soften up the passing attack, which I think is a little bit different this year, because last year Tyreek Stevenson was a walking touchdown. I mean, he gave up 10 touchdowns last year. Kyler Gordon looked like he wasn't going to take another step. Well, I've seen it in the first 3 games. I'm encouraged by those two. I think they've done a nice job. I think Jalen Johnson's the best corner in the league. I think Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker are very, very good players. Of course, Edmonds and Edwards, very good linebacker core, underrated. They spent a lot of money on those two, so they have to be really good. But then you have, guys like DeMarcus Walker up front. You mentioned Gervon Dexter Sr., and then, of course, Montez Sweat and Darrell Taylor coming off the edge. This is a really good defense. Now, the question is, how good are they? And we're about to find that out against a very, experienced quarterback in Matthew Stafford, an experienced play caller in Sean McVay, because this defense really made CJ Stroud not look that great. But the other 2 games, going up against Will Levis, going up against an experienced Anthony Richardson, who is notorious for making poor decisions despite the immense potential that he has, it's going to be really interesting watching them go up against Stafford this week. And I do think it's one of those things where you could say what you will about Matthew Stafford. Sometimes maybe it seems like he has a game or 2 every year that he doesn't look that great. I don't think this is going to be that game. But I want to also point out something. The reason why the Bears defense is as good as it is because, yes, they have the personnel, and, I love what they went out and did. But in addition to that, Eberflus is now calling plays as the defensive guy. So I think a lot of people kind of forget, because he's not a great coach by any stretch. He's just not a great head coach. Matt Eberflus was the defensive coordinator in Indianapolis and was very good, and became the head coach because of how good he was in Indianapolis. So I think when you look at Eberflus, he is going to bring life to this defense. Already has. I think the main thing that I would do is just, I would run the football, and then I'm taking deep shots down the field. I'm testing Kyler Gordon. I'm testing Tyreek Stevenson. I'm seeing how far. Okay, we've seen some good things in the first 3 games. I'm sure Sean McVay will see them. They'll watch the tape. But how good are they? And so I want to see that for sure. I'm testing Tutu Atwell downfield. I'm throwing over the middle on crossers to a Demarcus Robinson or Jordan Whittington. And I'm just, kind of stretching the defense all over the place, making them play everything because they have a lot of talented players. They have a good defense. They have a good play caller. So just keeping him on his toes, keeping them on their toes. And I think this should be a fun offensive performance. I think there are a lot of different things they could do. Now, if we were talking about, say, Wink Martindale calling defensive plays, I'd be a little concerned because I think he might be the Achilles heel for Matthew Stafford. If you look at the Giants game last year and in the past, just hasn't had success against Wink Martindale for any reason. So I think he's going to be able to have success against Eberflus's defense. And I think this defense is still really good. But my assumption here is that while we've seen some good things in the first 3 games, I'm starting to wonder how good CJ Stroud and the Texans are going to be this year, because they were really good against the Colts and then they weren't so great against the Vikings. And the Bears game was close, and I thought the defense really did a nice job holding them in check. But as far as the Bears, I think this is a huge opportunity here to see how good your defense truly is. I know Cooper's not out there. I know, Puka Nakua's not out there. But we saw what they could do against the 49ers last week. It's still Matthew Stafford. If you give him 2 competent tackles, he can make plays. So we'll see. But my guess is that we're going to find out the Bears defense is very good. It's not elite, and that's okay.
Yeah, their hardest test, in my opinion, out of they started the season against the Titans. The Titans started out the game pretty good, but then they just got really sloppy, and Levis struggled. You just mentioned the game with the Texans, and then Colts just were bad. But the Bears played really bad against the Colts too. But their defense, I think this might be legitimately their toughest offense. If Matthew Stafford comes out playing how he's played, and Kyren Williams has success on the ground, I really think the only test that, in my opinion, they had was that Texans team, who is very good, on paper. But yeah, I think that the Bears defense is going to be something to watch out for. I agree. I think we need to try a plethora of things, but I think running the ball on the ground really might be successful against the Bears. So switching gears, looking at the Bears offense, Jake, going against our defense. So we all know that the Bears quarterback is Caleb Williams. He is a rookie. He was the #1 overall pick in the draft. He came in, replaced Justin Fields. They totally rebuilt this Bears offense. They brought in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. They went and signed DeAndre Swift. Just absolute weapons, all of those guys that I mentioned. They drafted also in the first round Rome Odunze, which that is how you pronounce his name.
Yes.
I just want to say that because I keep hearing, and I'm not one to talk, but I did one time have somebody tell me, no, it's a Duns. And I was like, no, I know this.
No, it's not.
It's
Oh
Rome
my God.
Odunze, and I know that. So,
Rule number 1, if you try to correct somebody, you have to make sure you're right. You just have to. That's the prerequisite.
well, yeah, and it's okay to be wrong, but then just do your best to get it right after,
Yeah.
And then Cole Kmet, obviously tight end, who, like you mentioned earlier, has kind of been an underrated star for them. And he's gotten pretty hot in the past couple of weeks because Caleb has found in him a reliable receiver, which really he only has DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. Dunze, though, I think had his breakout game last game. I think that was the first time we really saw Caleb and him connecting. Dunze got a touchdown, his first of his NFL career, which was also Caleb Williams' first of his NFL career. It was a rookie-to-rookie touchdown last game. So I do think that he is going to be utilized more. I think that he started off slow, but I think that he is going to get more targets this game against the Rams. Like you mentioned, we don't know if Keenan Allen's going to play or not. DJ Moore will be out there. DeAndre Swift in the run game. Looking at this Bears offense, Jake, I think if we can shut down the run, which will be easier, I think, than maybe people might think, because this Bears run game has not been very good. DeAndre Swift has done nothing. And I will say part of it, I think, has to do with this Bears offensive line, which, guys, I know that we all were like panicked about the Rams, right? When this line is worse. I promise you, this Bears offensive line is the worst in the NFL. I quite literally I fear for Caleb Williams' life. And it was bad last year with Justin Fields too. Like the Bears offensive line has just been bad, but this year it's like taken on a whole other like sinister like energy that is just so beyond comprehension. So Jake, that said, if you can bring all the pressure up front, absolutely shut down the run game and absolutely just like pressure Caleb Williams, he's not going to be able to throw to anybody. So that's, to me, that's the key for our defense is if you just absolutely hammer the run game and Caleb Williams, just absolutely just pressure him. I mean, he's been struggling with that this entire season, and it's only 4 games in. So I don't know that they've figured it out quite yet on the Bears. I don't even know that there's anything to figure out for them. I think their line is just bad. So to me, the key to beating this Bears offense, like I said, is going to be just absolutely shutting it down at the line of scrimmage and not even giving Caleb Williams any time to find a receiver. And I know that that's a really basic way of explaining it, but Jake, do you agree with that? Or do you think that there's a different emphasis that the Rams should take?
Well, I mean, the Bears need to try and establish the run. Okay. And I don't know if they can do that, but they need to try. Because Caleb Williams, you're trying to make his job easier by having the play action passing attack, right? It's that simple. You got to make things easier on Caleb. Caleb should be a game manager in this game. Like they should really try to be able to run the football against a team that's given up 177 yards per game on the ground, which is the Rams. So that's the first thing I would be doing if I were the Bears. Now the Rams, they are in a really good spot, I think, to finally get home because we keep talking about, pressures, 27 last week, just out pressuring the 49ers going into the game. Just all of these pressures. We're talking about Braden Fisk leading the league and, of course, Jared Verse in second, right? And just tons of pressures. I think back to back, you had 7 pressures last week from Fisk and Kobe Turner. So as much as we love pressures and they matter, they aren't the end all be all. The sacks are. And so you have to be able to bring Caleb Williams to the ground. He's been sacked, I believe, 11 times so far in his young NFL career. I'm sorry, I think that was 13 times in his NFL career, looking at my notes. So, so he's been sacked 13 times already in 3 games. And some people would say that's not a lot. I do think that's a lot. I know he's a mobile quarterback. I know he runs around a lot, but Caleb Williams, if he didn't throw for 300 plus last week, I don't think the Bears are favored in this game, which they are. So I look at this game, and especially on the Rams defensive side, I think there's a really good mismatch even for them. Coleman Shelton was the weak link of the offensive line last year. Tevin Jenkins, he's solid. I think he's probably one of the better bright spots of the offensive line, but he's not amazing by any stretch. Matt Pryor is in because Nate Davis is out. And then you have Darnell Wright, who's not playing well. So I look initially, a guy like Byron Young, who's coming off one of the best games of his career going up against a Darnell Wright, although they moved him around against the 49ers. Jared Verse going up against Braxton Jones, who I've been a huge fan of Braxton Jones, but this year he is not looking good at all. And then you have in the interior, you got guys like, Bobby Brown. You got, of course, Kobe Turner. You got Braden Fisk going up against Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, and Matt Pryor. I like those odds. So I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams. Hell, they were able to get pressure on Brock Purdy last week, despite the fact that, Trent Williams was there, and they were able to beat Trent Williams. Verse beat him. Byron Young beat him. And of course, Bobby Brown beat him, which I also want to bring up because Bobby Brown, for the first time this year, was asked to not play from really the zero, but actually play. He was going up against Trent Williams quite a bit. They had him lined up against Trent Williams and actually showed some serious potential, like I've been saying, in the pass rush area of his game. So look, I'm just going to say this right now. Pressure, obviously, you got to be able to bring him down, get some sacks, but I talk about how this defense isn't going to be shut down, lockdown. It's going to be a defense that's opportunistic. Well, I think we're going to see that. Cameron Kinchens, this is his opportunity. He's been bullied. He doesn't look like he should be out there. It's time for him to go and snag an interception. This is a guy that had 11 interceptions or whatever in Miami, right? A ball hawk. So I look at him to be able to take advantage of that. And then in addition to that, you have corners that have ball skills as well. Kobe Durant, I don't have to tell you, led the league in interception return yards his first year. Quentin Lake, I'm curious if he's going to get anything going. Trey White. And then, of course, the linebackers, Cameron Curl, all of that. So I'm very curious to see how this thing's going to go down. But I think the Rams are in the driver's seat here to have a really big bounce back game on the defensive side of the ball, because I can tell you right now, they did a great job at the end of that game to secure the win against the 49ers, but they didn't play well for 3.5 quarters. So if they're still upset about that, they can go out and prove themselves this week, because Caleb Williams, you still have to give him credit where credit's due. This guy is a magician when he's able to get out of the pocket and scope things out. But the game is right now a little too fast for him. He's getting better each week. This might be the week where, he has a really good game, but we'll see. I think this is a good opportunity for the Rams defense, though. It's a good opportunity for the Rams to get back to 500 and go 2-2.
Yeah, I think, touching on this defense needing to have a statement game, I really think that that's important for a lot of different reasons for this team. This defense for the Rams hasn't really looked consistent, right? And we talk about, the fan base's frustration with the defense. They're probably frustrated with themselves. They were able to solidify that win against the 49ers, but I think that this defense has an opportunity going against this Bears offense that is, suffering because of this poor offensive line and, a rookie quarterback who's still kind of getting the hang of things. I think that they have an opportunity to really do some damage if they lock in and do their job correctly. So I'll be hoping for that. I think that there's a real opportunity that happens, and I really hope that this is not a game that the defense loses a handle on and allows Caleb Williams to have a coming out party. And that would just not be fun for the Rams to be the team which that happens. So Jake, looking at this, pretty straightforward, I think. We know what the Rams are at this point in the season. We know what the Bears have done. And I think I'm confident in my score prediction for this game. Are you?
I'm very confident in mine.
And what is it?
I got 30-20. I think this is a game that the Rams will control throughout. I'm not going to say they dominate the Bears. I could see that. I think there's definitely a pathway to that. But I think they're going to control the game. And they have the better running back. They have the better quarterback. They have the better head coach. They have the better coaching staff. They don't have the better defense. That's okay. They don't have the better wide receivers right now or, tight ends, but they have the much better offensive line. So I think there's a lot of things leaning towards the Rams. Still have to give the Bears a lot of credit for their defense. That will be a problem when they're fully, let's just say they're ready to go, right? At the beginning of the game, that's when you're going to get the most out of a defense. As time goes on, if the Rams can continue to milk the clock with Kyren Williams and sustain 12, 13 play drives, well, then that defense is going to get exhausted, and then they'll be pretty insignificant throughout the rest of the game. That's what I expect them to do. I expect them to look at this game and treat it as a game they just have to win. They're not going for any sort of style points. They're just going into Soldier Field and coming out with a W. That's all they're trying to do. Doesn't have to be pretty. I have 30-20 because I do think they're going to have some pretty drives, and I think they are going to have a lot of success, especially through the air. But we'll get into that when we get into predictions.
So I have 28-20, so very similar. I think that this Rams team is just playing, it's better than the Bears at the moment. I think, the Bears are suffering kind of from a multitude of different factors on offense. I think they're just not figuring it out yet. And that offensive line is just really kind of the nail in the coffin for them. I mean, they just really they've perpetually had a bad line for years. I've watched more Bears football than I am proud of, but they this year have really outdone themselves with a poor offensive line. It's very painful to watch, and I do think the Rams will capitalize on that, and they should. So yeah, I think the Bears defense, I think, is going to have a good game. Relatively speaking, I think they're going to give up 28 points, but they're going to be the bright spot for the Bears. And I think that this Rams offense is just going to pick up where they left off last week. So yeah, 28-20. So Jake, your prediction's 30-20, mine's 28-20, very similar. What are your three predictions that you're going to give for this week for this game?
So I think Tutu goes over 100 yards. Last week, Sean McVay, basically people like you and I and people have been paying attention to what happens when all the receivers are out and Tutu Atwell gets an opportunity. Saw that game coming against the 49ers. Fantasy football people that don't know Rams football that were telling you to pick up Tyler Johnson. Well, that's a different story. So I think Tutu Atwell is going to get more playing time moving forward. Sean McVay on his presser was very telling. He said, look, this guy he's come through every single time, his number was called essentially. And he mentioned, and I heard him mention this, basically said we could have done a much better job of getting him, more opportunities and, basically saying, kind of hinting the idea that that's going to change. So I love that. So I think big number 5, or I guess small number 5, is going to have a 100-yard game. Number 2, I'm going to say Jared Verse gets home, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a massive game. Okay, so I'm not the only person pointing this out. I know a lot of other people did, and I'm not trying to make a big deal because I don't think it's a huge deal. It's just an observation, and it's also one that doesn't have a ton of context, actually has zero context, and one that is you don't see the full scope. So what I'm talking about, I'm sure you saw it in that video, Jared Verse is over on the bench by himself after the game in I think it was DeMarcus Robinson mic'd up video. And you can only see him for a little bit in the background, right? He's just sitting there after they won. People expected more rah-rah celebration. Maybe that's not him, right? That's their first win of the year. We have no idea. We have nothing to go back to compare. But let's just say for a second, everyone who's bringing that up and saying it's a big deal and everything, they're right. Like, okay, Jared Verse was really upset with himself. Well, the best thing to do is go out there and actually finish sacks. I expect Verse to do that. This is what I'll say. When it comes to Justin Fields, right? Everyone used to say he's got a cannon, but he overthrows everybody. That's his issue. Well, guess what? That's a good issue to have. It's good to know that he has it as opposed to not having it, right? It'd be a lot worse, right, if he was underthrowing everybody. That would be a lot worse, wouldn't it? Well, over time, Justin Fields is going to develop touch and accuracy. And we've seen that with the Pittsburgh Steelers already in the first 3 games. Well, guess what? Same thing with Jared Verse. He's he's a little too this. He's a little too overzealous. He's a little too energetic. I keep saying that is going to result in getting sacks. That means this pressure that we're seeing, which, by the way, is not talked about nearly enough because the defense is giving up so many yards. But if the defense was even average with the yards given up per game, then they would be talked about in a very serious light. Alexis, they're getting a crazy amount of pressure and they're barely blitzing. It's probably the least amount of blitzing that they've done in the Sean McVay era. So already seeing these guys win the way they are, it's like hard to even say that they miss Aaron Donald. They do because he finishes sacks, but they almost don't because the pressure is just so good early on. And Jared Verse is among the league leaders in, win rate. I mean, he's ahead of Micah Parsons to start the season. And this is before the Giants Dallas game. I haven't seen what he's done tonight, so I'm not going to calculate that myself. But he was ahead of Micah Parsons before I checked. I checked before the game. So the point I'm making here is I think Verse is going to have a multi-sack game, whether that's 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. But I think that the rule of thumb is this. He has it. He's missing sacks. It's frustrating. He's going to eventually get those sacks. The game is going to slow down for him. He's playing too fast right now. You might say he's playing way too erratic. He's uncontrollable. Fine. But eventually he's going to get those sacks because he has the ability to get into the backfield as consistently as he does. He has that ability because we saw him against Taylor Decker get 6 pressures? That's a great sign. We saw him against Paris Johnson, very good young left tackle, get pressure. And most importantly, we saw him against Trent Williams. To me, that is the biggest one. And I'm losing my voice now. Love
Well,
that.
I definitely agree with you that Jared Verse is going to have a big game. The only reason I didn't make him one of my predictions is because I did
Hmm.
that last week.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to do a Jared Verse prediction this week, but I do think that he's going to have a big game. Yeah, and that video, I wish people would like stop over analyzing that. And I'm actually like concerned that people are so obsessed with that. I had like people sending that to me via DM. And I'm just like, why does everybody is like he's
I
being
get
hard
it.
on himself.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's like
get it,
I'm
but
not saying it's the right way to behave, but he's being hard on himself. He didn't We all know, everyone on the timeline was crying about how Jared Verse was missing sacks. Like, yeah, we all were frustrated about it. But
yeah,
so
it's
do
more
you think that
tackles.
yeah, so like do we all think that he is not also frustrated with himself by it?
Well, this
Like
happened in the
like
Super Bowl. Remember Jalen Ramsey? People are like, Jalen Ramsey didn't even look
yeah.
happy. Well, yeah, because it didn't exactly end well with Jalen Ramsey. Like people were talking about
Yeah.
how he got blown by at the last on the last play, and like if Burrow had
Yeah.
more time, he would have won the game. Like, of course, the if and but whatever. But no, I get it on all fronts. I get why a player would act like that. I get why fans are going to overanalyze. Um, this is why, unfortunately, whether it's fair or not, players back in the 80s would get away with that and it'd be no big of a deal. Well, now everything is on social media. Everything is under a microscope, and this is what you have. So I'm not blaming fans for feeling that way. You can feel however you want. I mean, it's your right to feel that way. But for me
Yeah.
personally, I don't think we have the context to just assume that, oh, he's being a bad teammate or assume this. My point is that I see it all on all fronts where I think Verse can do, first off, he can do whatever he wants. I've never seen him after a win in the regular season of the NFL game because this is the first win. So maybe he always does that. Maybe that's a ritual. I don't know. Like, we have no idea. So I don't read too much into that. But the point I'm making is if I were to read too much into that and he was that upset about himself, which is probably the case, then he's going to be that much hungrier this week. And he's got a juicy matchup against Braxton Jones. As painful as that is to say, because I have my guys around the league I like, and he's one of them. I just don't think he's playing well enough. And he's set up to have a really bad game. And then the last but not least prediction here I'm going to have is that, so I had Tutu Atwell going for 100. I had Jared Verse going for a multi-sack game. I'm going to go with the running back room because I have to. And I think Kyron Williams gets 6 receptions this week. I think they're finally going to use him in the passing game. I think a lot of last week, and maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I think a lot of last week was Sean McVay realizing we got to do things differently. Okay. They changed things up. I mean, I can't stress it enough. On the defensive side, Bobby Brown's rushing the quarterback, going up against the left tackle. On the offensive side, we saw 11 personnel. That's not a changeup. We saw a lot more 12 personnel. We saw more Hunter Long. They went for a fake punt. When's the last time they did that? Bones Fossil? I don't know. I truly don't know. Maybe they did after him. I don't remember them going for a fake punt. And then they used Kyron Williams in the passing game on more than just a dump off, an actual designed pass. So I feel like things are changing. Tutu Atwell getting more involved. If I'm right, I think Kyron Williams is going to have a big role in the passing attack moving forward, because I think the argument there is if he can even, as long as he can catch the football, he's probably, after Tutu Atwell, Demarcus Robinson, yeah, I would probably say he's the third best passing attack option. And maybe he's ahead of Demarcus Robinson. I just think like that, what he has, the skill set he has, as long as he can haul it in, he can make plays after the catch better than most wide receivers can, obviously, because running backs are more, shiftier in space. So I think we're going to see at least 6 receptions from Kyron Williams. I'll put it at 5. I'll put it at 5. So 5, at least 5 receptions from Kyron Williams. Wouldn't be surprised if it's more, and I won't be surprised if it's less. It's a bold prediction. 100 yards out of Atwell, multi-sack game from Jared Verse, and 5+ receptions from Kyron Williams.
Like it. I think I could see all of those happening pretty well, I don't say easily, but realistically. So bouncing off, to go into my predictions, the Kyron Williams thing, I do have Kyron Williams 2+ touchdowns. I think he's the hot hand right now for the Rams. He's all reliable, and I think that they're going to continue with that going into this game. So I think he's going to have 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to clarify if they're rushing, receiving, but I do think he will be involved more in the receiving game. Um, he, I think, has proven over time more and more that he is an option in the receiving game, and he can do some damage there. We saw his flip touchdown last week, which was a catch in traffic, and it was a very good throw by Matthew Stafford, completed by a really good reception by Kyren Williams. So I've got Kyren Williams 2+ touchdowns. Second prediction that I have is I'm not going to say I don't know who it's going to be, but I think that the Rams are going to have a pick six against Caleb Williams. Because I think, I could say, oh, well, the Rams are going to have an interception. I don't know that that's really bold because of the way Caleb Williams has been playing. And I think especially if the Rams defensive front can pressure Caleb, I think he's going to make some bad decisions. He's a rookie quarterback. I know he's really good, guys, but he's a rookie quarterback. And he's a rookie quarterback who has not made some bright decisions so far, understandably, to start the season, and he has a really bad offensive line. So he is feeling the pressure, and I think the Rams are going to capitalize on that, not just with sacks, but I think that they're going to get a pick six. I'm going to say that. That'll be a bold prediction. Then my third prediction is also defensive related. I think that the Rams are going to get at least, well, I'm going to say they're going to get 6 sacks. That is bold, in my opinion, even for this Bears offensive line. But I'm telling you, I've been watching them. I watch the Bears every single week, and it is excruciating, and it is painful. And we've talked about how this defense is getting pressures. They just haven't been able to finish the job. They know that. They all know that. They know that they're not finishing tackles, and I think that they're going to come into this game with a goal in mind. And I think they are going to absolutely be hell-bent on destroying this Bears offensive line. So I think they're going to go for 6 sacks. And
They
I would
gave up
love to
4
see
last
it.
week to Indy.
Yes, and I think that the Rams are doing better, in pressures. I mean, the Rams, like we said, their problem is that they just aren't they're just not finishing. And it's
Yeah.
really frustrating. And I think that this could be a big put it together week for this Rams defense. This is an opportunity for them to go against a really, really bad offensive line and a quarterback who has been making some not good decisions under pressure. And I think that they could feast. So I hope that they do. I hope that they absolutely eat the Bears offensive line and Caleb Williams alive, and they get a get right game. Even though that might not be theoretically their goal out loud, I do think internally a lot of them are looking to start closing out those tackles. So those are my 3 predictions. Kyren Williams 2+ touchdowns, Rams pick 6, and 6 sacks for the defense. I think it's going to be a big game for the defense. So Jake and I both think that the Rams are going to win. We both have some bold predictions, but I will be the only one at the game. So, I will not be doing my typical game day experience on X with all of you. I will not be tweeting out probably during the game because I will be witnessing it. So just know if everything starts to go really, really south, I will be sitting at Soldier Field having a meltdown internally. So keep me in your thoughts if things start to go really poorly and unexpected for the Rams. But if any of you are gonna be at that game on Sunday, let me know because I'm gonna be there. And it doesn't sound like there's a Rams specific tailgate going on, so I think we're all just gonna congregate in the stadium. If you guys tweet me, I'm more than happy to tell you what section I'll be sitting in. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys there. And there's a Rams get together maybe Saturday night. I don't know, but let's all plan on meeting at the game. So I just want to throw that out there if anyone's going to be in Chicago.
I like that.
Yeah, but
Yeah, by the
yeah.
way, reminder. So 4 sacks from the Colts. Even our guy Audibare had a sack.
Yeah.
He never plays. Their guy, because I know a lot of people that watch this were Latu fans. He had a sack, but there were 2 in the Titans game. So I feel like that's kind of the floor for the Rams. There were 7 in the Texans game, 7 sacks. So I know the Rams, they don't have Will Anderson and they don't have Danielle Hunter, but it sure looks like Jared Verse could become one of those two because
He's gonna
the
get
film
there.
is fun. The film is really fun. I can't stress that enough, folks. Just stay with him. There's so many people already that are like, I hate this guy. He can't make a sack. You have to understand something, okay? Aaron Donald had years where he couldn't get sacks, but he had 100 pressures, so no one gave a shit. You know what I mean? So just don't put too much of an emphasis on that and don't let it disrupt the flow because I'll tell you right now, what Verse is doing as a rookie, it's special. I'm just saying. I like what I was saying before I choked on air. Taylor Decker, Paris Johnson, and Trent Williams. 3 different types of left tackles, right? Different archetypes. And yet you have the best left tackle, and then you have like a top 10 tackle in Decker. And he worked against all 3 of them and made plays. So I'm just saying, I think this will be the Verse blow up game. And if it's not, it's going to be someone's blow up game because I think they're definitely going to at least get 4 sacks. I feel like I know I said their floor is 2, but I think they're at least going to match what the Colts did. They have better players up front than the Colts do. So that's just my opinion.
Well, I felt like 6 was safe just based on like in my mind what I wanted to go is I want to be like they're going to get 8 sacks because the Bears offensive line has like looked that bad, but I also don't want to be obnoxious. I think 6 is a safe
6 is a lot
bet. It is, but
he's a mobile quarterback. So he'll have sacks where it's like, okay, they might not have even earned it. He might have just run into them.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think if the Rams don't get pressure on Caleb Williams this game, then we can start having the conversation about what's going on, like some weird voodoo magic, because this, like, there's no way they don't. And back to the Jared, it would be bad. It'd be embarrassing. I mean, trust me, guys, the Rams are gonna at least get there. I think the question is not are the Rams gonna get there? It's are they gonna finish? And I think that they're going to finish the job. I think that they're going to get the sacks and yeah. I think they will.
I mean, against the Lions, they had 15 pressures on Goff. That was what people would widely say is the best offensive line in football. Then they went up against the Cardinals and got 12 pressures on Kyler, which is fine. I mean, if you get double-digit pressures, it's not a bad day. But getting 27 is insane. They dominated the 49ers front. So that's a really good sign. And the most important telltale sign that this is legit and not just like manufactured BS. They're not blitzing. They don't blitz that much. They really don't. Like you're going to have the Colts are going to blitz more. Texans blitz. The Rams are not blitzing anywhere near most teams. So this is manufactured, what we call a true pass set. These are true pass set pressures. This is legit. And is this sustainable? I don't know. I mean, this is crazy. But to be off to this start already, it's a great sign post Aaron Donald that they're going to be okay.
Yeah. I have high hopes. I have really high hopes for them this Sunday in Chicago at Soldier Field, as I know you do and most people listening do. I think it should be a really fun game to watch. Should be a beautiful day to go to the game for everyone else who is going. And I'm hoping that we will all be celebrating a Rams win come Sunday afternoon. Guys, Jake and I will be back Monday night recapping everything that happened in our game against the Bears. But until then, as always, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And guys, like I said, we'll be back soon. But as always, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.